Hey, you guys, welcome to another video. And like I always say, I'm so glad that you are here with me. Really appreciate that. Today's video is going to be, I would say, a kickoff of maybe a two-part series. I would say at least a two-part series. It could go longer than that, but be honest with you, some of the stuff we've been talking about anyway, but I wanted to kind of put it into kind of like an easy to find series. So at the most, I see this as like a two-part series. So we'll just start with that. And to be honest with you, I don't even have a name for it yet. If I could, what comes at top of my mind right now would be breaking out of the matrix system. But that's, I mean, a lot of people have said that, but it'll be something along those lines. So by the time you see this video, I would have come up with something. Okay. But what we're going to get into very quickly, the first part, which we're getting ready to get into now, is really going to be setting the stage for part two, where we're going to really get into understanding again how the brain and consciousness, how those work and all of that, because there's certain things we've been told about the brain that really isn't true. And we're going to look into that. And my goal with all of this is really to, as a black man, right? I am so done with the cycles that I keep seeing happening to my people over and over and over and over and over again. I don't know about you, but I'm very done with it. I really am. So we have argued, we have debated, we have attacked one another, we have attacked the system, we have yelled, we have screamed, we have posted, we've done all of these things. But years later, we're still seeing these same cycles that keep happening over and over again. And I'm tired of it. You know what I mean? I'm done with it. So what that has done is caused me to really start thinking a lot deeper about these things and really, going away, putting myself to the side and just really thinking about, okay, how do we work? How does this world that we live in, how does it really work? And all of that. And starting off by just clearing the slate, and so that's what I've done. And so if you've been following me on this platform, we have been through a great journey. I mean, that's part of the title of this channel is Samba Journeys. I mean, we have been on a journey and we still are on one, and, we've come through Christianity. Then we got into the Hebrew stuff and then all of that. And so our worldview has gone through, I won't even say tweaks. It's been tweaked and tweaked out. You know what I mean? And so now we're in this place where we're just like, okay, let's just clear the deck and let's just get to the bottom baseline, right, of everything. And yes, it is possible for you to do that. And that's what we're doing here, and that's what my goal is for these videos. So anyway, so let's go ahead and get into it. So this first one, we're going to look at how the world that we live in is just pretty much made up of stories. It is. It's just made up of nothing but stories. When you go back into the ancient civilization, stories was regardless of what part of the world you're in, stories was very instrumental in entertainment. It was instrumental in conveying different ideas. It was just a way of communicating certain messages and all of that. And so just imagine in these ancient cultures, people would, when they would tell stories, oftentimes it would be by a fire, or maybe they were working, or maybe, right before you get ready to go to bed, there was a story that was told, or, things like that. And people would this is just a very basic way of conveying whatever it is that you were trying to convey. And stories themselves aren't really bad. It can be quite fun. It can be intriguing. It can be mysterious. It can also be scary. It could be a lot of things. But then you have people in our society who will see how powerful stories are and begin to use them for their own advantage. And that's when you get village elders that will tell these stories like, hey, I had a vision from one of the ancestors and they told me that I was to be the next leader or whatever, right? And then, of course, we get into politics. Politics, again, is full of stories where each and every side, whatever side of the aisle or which building or whatever, depending on what country you're in, or what government you're under, they all literally have their own stories. Each politician tells their own stories they tell their own backstory of what caused them to want to get into politics in the first place. So they get with professional storytellers to put up a story that's convincing enough to get people to vote for you. And then the party itself, well, they're made up of a bunch of stories. It's made up of a whole conglomeration of different stories, different narratives. The person that's elected into office, that's, the main person, like the president. Well, they have a whole department that's dedicated to just telling stories, right? When we look at the news media, you will never look at news media again when I'm about to tell you. News media, how does it start off? When you're looking at the news, what's the first thing they say? Today's top, story. They always say that. Today's top story is this. So even the news media is full of stories. Social media is full of everyone's stories. They even got, I forgot Instagram. They got a whole section, I think they used to call it stories, or maybe that's TikTok, don't know. But everybody's got a story. Well, let's get into religion. Let's talk about that. Religion itself is full of stories. It's stories that, again, that create these belief systems. Regardless if we're talking Christianity or, anything beyond that, anything that's Bible based, whatever the religion, they have their own stories. They have their own mythos, their own mythologies, their own that creates these related belief systems. But they're all stories at the end of the day. Let's look at Christianity, for example, that tells us that all people were born into sin. Well, this is something that for me, as someone that spent over 40 years, I know I keep saying that, but it's true. I've been in Christianity. I was in Christianity for a very long time, and my wife as well. Over 40 years of just in-depth, very committed to the Bible, to the letter, to the dot, to the comma, to the explanation point, to the question mark. I was a very committed Christian. And, when the Bible would say, study to show thyself approved, that was me because I was that guy. You know what I mean? Of course, there's other people that will do even more than I would, but I would like to consider myself, I was very committed to the stories, if you will, of the Bible. But at that time, I didn't know they were stories. I thought it was true. But then as time went on, I began to start looking at these stories and saying, well, wait a minute. This is what I'm told to believe in, but why is this stuff not happening? And so, like I always talk about, they shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. But I would watch loved ones left and right dying. And these are loved ones who were in some cases, or many cases, they were even more committed than I was. But yet those things weren't panning out. Those promises that were conveyed in these stories, they weren't panning out. Let's get back to what I was saying about mankind, when we're talking about Bible-based religions, being born into sin. Now, religion itself, there's something I want you to know. I want you to, we're creating a baseline here with this part one. Religion in of itself is a way to explain what cannot be explained, where it's unexplainable. What religion attempts to do is to look at the world that's around us and attempts to make sense of it. It attempts to give things meaning where the meaning isn't quite there. You understand what I'm saying? And so that's what religion does. And so when we're looking at a Bible-based religion, for example, what it does is it tells you up front that you were born into sin. In other words, when you were born in this world, according to the stories of the Bible, you were already born at a deficit. And you're already born with some deficiencies and all of that. But when one takes an honest look at the human body, for example, when you take an honest look at at the human body, what about the body is bad? What about it? I mean, you look at your heart, you look at your lungs, you look at your hair, you look at your eyes, you look at your teeth. I can't say that about your breath, though, because there's a lot of bad breath out there now. That might be sin. That may be the sin. Some of y'all got some sin up in that mouth. Anyway, I'm just playing. But for real. So when we talk about, so what we're in the case of, the Bible-based religions, it's clear. It clears the deck and it says, listen, we have to create this narrative. If you're going to come in, we're going to bring you out of the wider world. And if you're going to come in this gate, the first thing you got to accept is that you were born bad. You were born into sin. And that's what Bible-based religions, that's what they do. They clear the deck and they set a new standard that you were born bad. But inquiring minds want to know. People that really want to know. I've even seen people like myself. You know how if you're in the church, and every time they have an altar call, you got people quietly sitting in the back that are like, okay, well, what did I do this? And anytime they do that altar call, you're thinking of a reason. I just want to make sure I'm not going to go to hell. I want to make sure I'm going to hell. So you think about any and all things to make sure that you're right. Well, that thing I did the other day, that was bad. Will that get me into hell? That kind of thing, right? But as I was getting ready to say, inquiring minds want to know. When you step back and you begin to start thinking, wait a minute, let me look at the body. Let me look at how the body is made, how it operates, how it functions, and you start really beginning to study that, how the mind works. And again, we're not talking any woo-woo. We're not talking any of that. We're just simply saying, look at how the neurology of the system, of our bodies. How our brain works, how thoughts work, that kind of thing. What religion will tell you is that if you get a good thought, that's God. But if you get a bad thought, that's the devil. That's what religion says. But can that be quantified? Can that be proven that the source of these thoughts are actually coming from these deities that are stated in a Bible full of characters? We say Bible, we don't say Bible figures, we say Bible characters. The only place you'll find characters are in a story. Okay? Let me take a peek at my notes here real quick. Stories were educational. Stories were moral. Stories were political. Stories were disciplinary. And so when we look at the collective stories of the Bible, that's what they relay, these things. And that's just the Bible. But like I said, you can point to any other religion. They have these same kind of things here. But what I am challenging you to do, because when we get into part 2, you're really going to be challenged, because what we're going to look at is we're stepping away, we're peeling away from the stories, the world of stories. And we're going to look at some basic things from a physics, from a scientific, mathematical. We're going to look at all of these things and look at an honest take and an honest view on how our bodies, how our beings actually work. And this, I think personally, when it's not just I just notice that if we can begin to understand that, Once we begin to understand that, we're going to begin to see these cycles that I was just venting about earlier in this video really begin to start breaking apart. And that's what I want to start seeing. Because what has happened is when we talk about the black community, and it's just not applicable to just black people, it's applicable to anybody. We live in a world where we have, in one shape or form, we have accepted a narrative. We have accepted a story. We have accepted somebody's story that's out there, that we're always going to be this or we're always going to be that. We've accepted these narratives. You know, if you're watching this video, it's the end of January 2026, and the hottest topic that we see right now is what's going on in Minnesota. And, you know, I've had one individual ask me my take on it, and I was like, I don't really have one to give. And quite honestly, I don't want to give one. Because what I do know is what we're witnessing is a story being played out in real life. Are people being killed? I mean, the way it looks, it is, but that's what it is. Wars are a story. These are narratives. Wars are built on stories. So we have to begin to break away. The first thing we got to do, we're trying to fix ourselves, because this clearly, our outlook has been warped. And I'm including myself in that as well. So what we got to do is we got to clear the deck, and we got to start saying, okay, let's put that to the side. Let's put all of that to the side, and let's get to the basics. Let's get to the bottom line here. And that's what we're going to attempt to do in this very short series. I told you this wasn't going to be a long video at all. So I'm very excited about this. And so this week this video I'm putting out today, you know, look at the date. Then tomorrow, you know, whatever the next date is after this one, that's going to be another one I'm going to put out too. And that one, we're really going to get into some stuff that's really going to be, I think, very fascinating. And I'm going to do the best I can to kind of really simplify it. But it's just, once you hear it and get it, man, it's going, I think a lot of you are really going to start making some better choices. And I'm very excited about it. So look forward to seeing you in part 2. Thanks again for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you again soon.